This meeting of the Starkville Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. And Alderman Vaughn would like to open us with a word of prayer, which will be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our God and our Father, most holy, all wise, all knowing, all powerful, all seeing, all hearing, understanding God. Father God, refuse your handmaid servants again, come before you to handle the affairs of the city. Father God, we pray that you will move on the hearts of the mayor and the board and these department heads. Father God, that the blessing that you blot on us, Father God, will contribute to all applicants of this city. Father God, we thank you for the privilege that you give us to be able to serve this city. Father God, we pray that you will fill this building with your spirit. Father, we give you all praise and glory because you is our God and we are your children. We thank you so much. We give you all praise and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, you have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Alderman Vaughn.
Is Miss Jennifer here? Jennifer Gregory?
Ms. Gregory?
She here?
I don't think Ms. Gregory is here yet.
We'll move that public hearing to the consent agenda again. Yes, ma'am.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place the public presentation by Ms. Jennifer Gregory on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
It's up on the mayor business, item number E.
You'd like to move that to consent?
Yes, sir.
Proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place the approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Mississippi Department of Human Services and the City of Starkville on behalf of Golden Triangle African American Cultural Society, DBA Brickfire, and Mrs. Helen Taylor for fiscal year October 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2014, as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
Also up on the mayor's business, item number F to consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place the approval of the letter of engagement between Child Fund International and the City of Starkville on behalf of Golden Triangle African American Cultural Society, DBA Brickfire, and Ms. Helen Taylor, as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
In the elected department, number 2, move to consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place item 11D2, the authorization to adopt retail rates with TVA wholesale rate increase with the effective date of October 1st, 2013, as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Alderman Perkins.
Just one matter. Mr. Kemp, just want to make it clear for the press and the public on that matter. These increased rates are just the standard traditional pass-through rates, and we are not increasing any rates from TVA. That's what that means, right?
You're exactly right, Alderman. These are rates that TVA is imposing on the wholesale rate that will be pushed through, so any additional changes on our rates will be a pushback through TVA. We collect no additional revenue to hold here on our market.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revisions?
H, personnel, move 1 and 2 to consent. Take them one at a time. Move number 1 to consent.
The proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place items 11H1 and 11H2 onto the consent agenda. Those items are as follows: the authorization to advertise to fill a vacant position of maintenance worker in the Water Sewer Division of Public Services as presented, and the authorization to advertise to fill a vacant position of maintenance worker in the New Construction Rehab Division of Public Services, also as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
All right. Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed
Let's
revisions?
see, Ms. Jennifer Gregory just came in. Jennifer, we moved your item to consent. Do you still want to speak on it?
Only if you can place the board.
It's just to approve your budget?
Yes, sir.
Well, actually, I should clarify, that was a presentation, but we don't have a corresponding matter on the agenda. Is her budget included in the presentation?
It is not in the, did you drop it in? Or it's coming in 2 weeks, yeah.
We'll just wait until 2 weeks.
Okay, so they'll have the content of your presentation in written format, and you can take that as the board accepting that in good faith tonight, and then they'll have your proposal before them in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
All right.
No further,
No further proposal.
are there any further revisions to Alderman Maynard?
I'd like to move under Mayor's Business, item D, to the executive session, A, personnel, for a discussion of job performance related to that.
The proposed revision from Alderman Maynard is to reorder the agenda, placing what was formerly item 9D as a new item 14A under personnel performance. Alderman Maynard, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, that matter's been moved to executive session. Alderman Maynard, do you have further proposed revisions?
No, sir.
Are there any further proposed? Alderman Carver.
Under Department Business, item H1, move to consent. No, H3, move to consent. Personnel, item number 3.
The proposed revision from Alderman Carver is to place the approval of proposed changes to the Personnel Policy Manual on the consent agenda as presented. Alderman Carver, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear any objection?
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, just let Chris, I think Chris has looked over that, just solely want to know briefly what that does. I have no objection, but I like what Mr. Attorney to just recite quickly what that does.
We clarify the policies and procedures of the city to comport with the law in that if an employee gets recommended for suspension without pay, then that matter must come before the Board of Aldermen.
And secondly, and finally, and once the department head notifies that employee of the suspension without pay, that triggers the employment grievance process.
Correct. We clarified that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a clarifying question as well for that. Does that include the appeal process for an employee?
That is the grievance process.
That is the grievance process.
Is there any objection? Alderman Little.
No objections on that.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been moved to the consent agenda. Alderman Carver, did you have further proposed revisions?
No, sir.
Alderman Little.
Got a correction on the minutes on 4A, consent agenda number 6. We had removed Steve Phillips and added Bobby Grimes, and it should not be Parks and Rec, it should be Board of Appeals and Adjustment Appeal.
Thank you all.
All right, without objection, Alderman Little's change will be incorporated along with the city attorney's changes. Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, Alderman Little, do you have further proposed revisions?
No, sir.
Alderman Carver.
The only thing I noticed on page, I don't know what it is on here, on page 62 of our e-packet, that had your name as Paul Wiseman, if that's something that needs to be changed or not, but if it's something to be duly noted, we can do that.
That's clerical. Any further proposed revisions?
I'd like to remove under Board Business, item F from consent.
All right, item F, the consideration of the change in adoption date of a resolution setting the mayor's salary and alderman salaries for the city of Starkville effective October 1st, 2013, instead of October 1st, 2014, has been removed from the consent agenda. Are there any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions?
Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
On the electric department section D3, just a clerical note to the city clerk. If you would, cite the statutory authority, and that is 3171F and 31713K
31713K.
and 3171F.
Got it.
Okay.
All right, and the clerk will make note of the city attorney's recommendation. Are there any further proposed revisions to the agenda as written? Any further proposed revisions?
I got one clarification, man. Under planning, B and C, we've got several folks here, I believe, want to speak on this topic. And we're going to be able to allow them to speak prior to making a decision on whether or not to proceed.
Actually, you and the city attorney just hit the same thing at the same time. We have several matters related to the mill project that are on the consent agenda, and those matters require public hearings. So since they have not been pulled from the consent agenda, what we'll do is at this time, I will ask if anybody wishes to be heard on those matters, and this is your opportunity to be heard. If they remain on the consent agenda, when the board approves the consent agenda, they will be approved at that time. Is there anyone now wishing to be heard on matters related to the mill project?
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. On the mill project, first of all, let me say that I'm for the mill project, worked on it for a long time. I think it's wonderful for the city. What is being proposed, I will say, is different than what on the meeting, on the exhibit that was presented to y'all as Exhibit A on the August 6th meeting. The entrance road coming into the project was actually a shared road between Ergon, and you've got a picture of it, between Ergon and Mississippi State. What's been proposed now that I don't think that, and it may be a procedural issue because it's a different plat that y'all have not seen since that August meeting, is a change in that road. And actually, the road is, the vote tonight that you're looking at is changing that from a standard, I think almost a 50-foot roadway to a 30-foot road that is actually on the property line. Now, what this does is basically it's a two-lane road that accesses the property, and what it does is create, now this is what I want y'all to understand what it does. It's going to create a huge disparity in the properties itself. And we worked on this mill project for so long, and after we did the charrette 2 years ago that the city did, they identified this piece of property as one of the ground zero for development of this, and most important, this get done right. This property from Spring Street all the way down to Russell has always been developed, and what we had looked at doing was making a single looking development that looked aesthetically nice. What's gonna happen now is that, and we always were gonna take this hill, because if you look at your plat, you see a height of 398. On the top of this hill is 398 degrees. The difference in Ergon's property and the other remaining property, you're gonna have a 22-foot retaining wall that you're gonna see from Highway 12 when you come around. 22-foot retaining wall here. Ergon's gonna do their own deal, put another road, because this small road is gonna be 26 foot wide, is not large enough for them on whatever Ergon develops here. They're gonna put another road coming in off of Russell to access their property, and it's gonna be at least almost 10 feet to 12 feet retaining wall facing the university. Now, so all I want y'all to be aware of is we want this project to happen, but if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. Let's do it to where we'll all be proud of it, and it's gonna look great. What they're proposing now is a minimum, for you to minimalize the standard that you've had for this city. And accessing a major development has always been a 50-foot roadway. You're actually, he's trying to approve, a 26-foot roadway. And with all the retaining walls that are gonna be put in place, it's going to look terrible. So, and also I'd like to say on the procedural issue, this exhibit that was presented with this road is not what y'all voting on tonight. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Question?
Alderman Walker.
I have a question for you. I'm looking at your 398 elevation and 395, 396, 390, 371 down on the road. So we have a significant amount of elevation change from Highway 12, but from the actual property, we're only talking about 8 feet. So where are you finding the extremely large retaining wall being, or the need for a very large retaining wall?
This property right here, you see that?
Yeah,
All this
396.
is 374. So all this property is going to be graded down to 374. this is a 398 hill, 396. So all this is going to be flat from all around here. And Ergon at 375 is going to be flat. And you're going to have a 398 hill that's not going to be taken down. The way we had always designed it, it was all going to be flat. And I was going to be at around 370, 371, 372, which is the elevation of Russell. So when you to Russell, Highway 12. So when you come around Highway 12, you can see everything. Now you're going to come around here, you're going to see a 22-foot retaining wall sitting right here. You're going to see a big piece of dirt sitting right up here. And then you're going to come around to Ergon's and you're going to see a flat piece of property at 395. And this is just going to be one big old eyesore with a retaining wall here, right on the edge of this property. I mean, this is basically, this roadway is 13 feet off the end of that building. And I'm not, I want to state again, I'm not against the project. We need this project. But if we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard?
I'm Nat Whitten, I'm a civil engineer with the Pickering firm, and we're working on this project for Mr. Castleberry, the developer. That road was originally intended to be 31 feet wide, not 50. And 26 feet wide road is compatible with your zoning for that area. It meets the approval of the fire department. We met with the staff, the fire department, the city engineer, the city planner, and everybody's comfortable with the way we're proposing to do this development. We can't anticipate what's going to happen on property that's not ours. We plan for a road to go to our property line in a variable right-of-way. It's still going to be the same style road. 2 ways to get out and 1 way to come in, same as before, as was shown on our preliminary plat. All the improvements are on our property. They follow the general lay of the grade that's there now. We'll have a small, maybe a 2-foot retaining wall along our property line to get this road in, but with the coulee basement and the way our property sits where the hotel is going to be, we're going to keep our road at the same grade as the land that lays now. And Ergon's property will have full access to our road, and there won't be any issues with tying in their road to our road as the land sits now. Again, we can't forecast what they're going to do on their land. That's not ours to design. That's not ours to deal with.
I have a question.
Sure.
My understanding is you're bordered on one side by the property line.
That's correct.
You're bordered on the other side by the historic line because that building is a historic building and you
Yes,
can't
sir.
tread. Is that
Yes, sir.
a correct statement?
We only have 37 feet from our property line to the coulee building.
Right.
That's the narrowest part of the right-of-way. Otherwise, we're going to have 40 to 50-foot right-of-way for our 26-foot road. 2 13-foot lanes.
Thank you, Mr. Whitten.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to be heard on the matter? Anyone else wishing to be heard? Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing no one, that will conclude the public hearings on these matters. At this time, a motion to approve the agenda is revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Did I call you Alderman Little? Excuse me, let the record reflect that it was Alderman Nguyen, the guy that seconded the motion.
We'll get that off.
I heard a chuckle, and it took me a second to realize what everybody was chuckling about. All right, you now have before you the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. I will take us to comments by the mayor and board. And I have one comment that was not placed on the agenda tonight. That is that I would like to invite everybody to our 4th annual recycling day. Here is the invitation for those of you with really good eyesight that can see it. For those of you that can't, I will tell you that it's going to be Saturday, September 28th at the site of the community market, and it will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. We will have opportunities to learn about the recycling program, become a participant of the recycling program, and eat and have a good time. So I invite everybody to attend. That concludes my comments for this evening. Are there any comments by the members of the board? Are there any comments by the Alderman Nguyen?
Good evening, everyone. from time to time, I told you that I would announce that if we have any new businesses here. And we have a new restaurant that will be here, and it will be located on Highway 182. The owners of it are Mr. and Mrs. Pete Patel, and it will be a little Indian restaurant. So I'm excited because I like curry. And the next something that I want to announce to you, raise your hand if you are an employee of the city of Starkville. Wow. Okay, you can take them down now. On October the 11th, the mayor and I, along with the rest of the aldermen, we're going to have a city tailgate for you all. And it's our way of saying thank you so much for the work that you do that we don't get a chance to say thank you. So we want you to come by that Friday and enjoy some food and fellowship with us. It'll also be good because the EPA assessment grant program will be here, and we're inviting them to stay along, and then they're going to attend our Mississippi State football game the next day. So I hope to see you all then for your lunch. Thank you. I yield the floor at this time.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Any further comments by the members of the board?
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Walker.
I just want to say thank you for everybody who participated in and helped organize the Get Swept Up event several weeks ago. What a great event for Starkville to get people involved, actively helping pick up and tidy up our streets. It's always good to see that people care. Having said that, one of the things that I think we need to, I would request that the board look that we do a little bit better job of is game day planning. We had a great Get Swept Up event that week, and then we had ball game on Saturday. And we love ball games in Starkville on Saturday. But with that comes all the people. And when all the people leave at the end of Saturday night, sometimes our little areas are in a state of chaos, a lot of rubbish on the street. We need to know when those things are coming so we can get that picked up in a appropriate manner on Sunday as soon as possible, so we can better plan for when those are coming, so that when people are leaving on Sunday morning, that Starkville looks as good on Sunday as it did on Thursday or Friday when they came into town.
Are there any further comments from
Got one,
Alderman
Mr. Mayor.
Vaughn?
Good evening, Mayor and the board. Mr. Mayor, I just got one thing. I just would like the public to know that all young men, African-American young men that drive old cars and with dreadlocks on their head, they're not drug dealers and they're not looking for drugs. And this is racial profiling. I just wish that we can do something about this, because I have 11 kids and I got some with dreadlocks. They college graduates. All 11 of my kids are college graduates, and they are not looking for drugs. They don't carry guns, and the way they're being, if it's something personal against me, please don't take it out on my family. If it just is political about me and my decisions that I make here, don't take it out on my family. I got 11 kids and they're not scattered around. All of them around me daily. They're around me. We communicate every day. So if this is something personal towards Henry Vaughn, leave my family out of this. Thank you.
Are there any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments by the members of the board? Any further comments? Seeing none, we will move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Greeting to the man, boy, my name is Albert, Ward 7. I'm a person get charged to my head. There's been a lot going on. I want to recognize our vice mayor person.
Good evening, Mr. Alvin.
So we have a few things that is concerning us, and that is bullying in school. We had a 12-year-old jump to a death because of bullying. Let us see if we find a way to let anybody that does this have to suffer consequences. It's sad that a person is so ashamed of bullying that they kill themselves. It's nothing funny. It's nothing to laugh at. Also, we would like that anyone that make a false statement or whatever be dealt with. because that confuses people when the real thing happens. It's nothing to play with. We take a lot of things for granted. It confuses the police officers and stuff. And when the real thing happens, they feel like they're just a prank. We shouldn't pray without afraid of responding like that. All right, it's not good and it's not respectable. And the standing ground law, we need to some understand on that because a lot of shooting and stuff is going on and we don't know where it's coming from, the pressure or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Yes, sir. My name is Robert Calvin. I say good evening to everyone. I also stand as
Mr.
Alderman
Howard,
Vaughn once said.
but before you begin, I think I know where you might be going. And I have your statement, if it is related to allegation of police misconduct, the caution that I would offer the board is if this gets into a discussion about a particular police officer and their performance, I would recommend that this is a matter that needs to be heard in closed session to determine whether there's a need to hear it in executive session. Now, Mr. Howard, that would be a decision for the board to make, so you may continue.
All right, I just wanted to state that on August the 31st, I was also pulled over by officers, pretty much stating, I'm gonna say the same thing, I was stereotyped.
And Mr. Howard, please address the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would also say that I may have been stereotyped. I was driving my 2004 Crown Vic. I also have 20-inch rims on. And I was passing by an officer and just simply spoke to him. He turned around and came and pulled me over. Said I didn't have on a seatbelt. I tried to explain to the officer, well, officer, I have my belt across me. Well, you just snapped it, pretty much just not taking at my word, you know. So he went from a seatbelt to a, do I have any weapons in my car? And I stated, well, you stopped before a seatbelt, how would you get on weapons? I said, but yes, sir, I do have a weapon in my car. He asked me what it was, I told him. He asked me to step out. He got it, he called it in, everything was okay. Not only did he do that, he also asked me, have I ever been to jail? Now, you just called my record in. Why would you ask me, have I ever been to jail? Why? You just called my record in. It's clean. So why would you even ask me that? So I feel like I was pretty much being stereotyped by this officer for no reason, just because of what I was driving. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. And Mr. Albert, I've got your full statement. I have submitted that statement to the police department. That will trigger an internal investigation, and you will be notified of the findings of that investigation. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Well, I was about the racist profile.
And please come forward and introduce yourself so the clerk can have your name for the record.
How everybody doing? I'm Suhaib Fair, and I was also pulled over September the 4th around 1 for littering. That's what he said I did, but I know I didn't throw anything out the car. The officer pulled me out the car, searched me, searched the car, you know, and I didn't tell him to do any of this searching. And I asked for his supervisor to come out, and his attitude was way worse than the officer on the scene. You know, you want to talk to a grown man like he a kid. You know, there's no way to treat anybody. You know, I feel like you should treat people the way you want to be treated first. And I just want to know if me, the board, Mel, could sit down and look at this tape and the audio that they say they have.
And Mr. Fair, I've got a copy of your statement, and it has been submitted to the police department as well. That will automatically trigger the internal investigation process. You'll be notified as to the findings. Now, with respect to me and the board, all internal investigation files can be viewed by sitting members of the governing body. So should the members of the governing body wish to review the files and the internal investigation file in detail, that's certainly something that's available to them.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Fair. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Other topics?
Yes, the citizen comment is a time for you to comment for 3 minutes on whichever topic you would choose.
I'm Steve Damaris. I'm on Ward 5. I'd just like to compliment the board on the vote for approving the increase in the millage.
Now, I will say, we're going to have a public hearing later on the budget, so you can certainly comment on that now, but there will be a time when lots of people will be commenting on the budget a little bit later, if you'd like to wait.
Comments then.
Are there any further citizen comments?
Yes, sir, I've got it.
I'm gonna go while he comes. My name is Dorothy Isaac, and everybody know me, I know. But this is to the mayor, also to my aldermen, all of them. I don't call one name, I call all of them, and the vice mayor who I should respect. I would just like to say now, sitting up here on behalf of the gentlemen that just got through, speaking, I'm saying young men. These are young men, young black men. And I'm saying, let's not start this in Starkville. Let's get to the center of it. Getting stopped because you're tagged or because you got these big rim tires. Sometimes talk about the big rim tires too, but that's what they want to put on their car. If I want to put the tiny ones that pop on mine, I will. But I would just like to say, if we're going to get together and have a city, let's make sure that our police department is up to standards with the young things that's going on. You don't stop young people and ask them because this is a fear. Police should be a protection. They should protect you. And I feel like if they got this, please, Mayor, I'm asking you, don't let it go too far, because if it get too far, and we have to have some demonstrations about it, about what's going on in different cities and things, we can. But please be fair. Understand that they have a right to come here and say what they have to about the city government, because this is what our meetings are all about. So I'm gonna ask you, please look into it. Go into private section and do all this, but let's have an understanding and a report, because this is what we need, and we need to understand what go on. And this is Dorothy Isaac as a citizen. I'm talking to you, so I got one vote on it, but I'll get up and I have 62 if I have to get somebody else to march along with me. Please don't let this happen to our city. Please.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Chief Lindley.
Thank you. I'm David Dingley. I'm the chief of police. I appear here under citizens' comments because these are serious accusations. I want to assure to everyone here that we take these very seriously, and I want to assure the public and the board and the mayor that we have safeguards against this. To name a few things, we were the first police department of the state of Mississippi to be state accredited. These require certain standards and guidelines and proof of what we do. We also are one of only 6 in the entire state of Mississippi that is nationally accredited. These also have specific requirements. In addition to that, we have a very specific general order against racial profiling. In addition to that, each officer's arrest records are reviewed and can be broken down by race, sex, age, and we do that on a regular basis. These are some of the safeguards. If a citizen, as we've had these 2 gentlemen have a concern tonight, and they have exercised the proper procedure, they submit a complaint that is forwarded to the first line supervisor of the officer that the allegations are made against. He conducts the investigation because it is his responsibility to make sure that this officer is behaving as he should up to professional standards. He conducts this investigation, and then it is forwarded through the chain of command to the next level, which is the lieutenant, to the next level, which is a captain, and ultimately through me. So this is reviewed by many different levels in the department, and at least one black and one white supervisor. None of this is rubber stamped. It's all taken very seriously. We did a good thing a couple of years ago in assuring that we can provide quality of documentation of what goes on with our officers, because we have video cameras and we do have videotape and audio tape of our traffic stops.
A few things. We have over 50 officers in the police department. We don't always do everything perfect. I will be the first one to admit that. It is a constant strive to perform as we should. Sometimes we do better than other times. But anytime there's an accusation, it is going to be investigated thoroughly, efficiently, and adequately. And I believe that we can document anything that we need to and show anything that we need to. And this is a very important thing to us and our citizens, and we appreciate them bringing it to our attention as a concern. And I can assure you that we will do everything we can to make sure that this is not occurring. It is difficult to be perfect on every traffic stop. We literally make thousands of traffic stops a year. We issued over 10,000 traffic tickets last year, and these are 2 complaints that have come forward tonight. But I assure you, these will be investigated thoroughly, and we will not put up with, nor do we condone, nor do we tolerate any type of racial profiling or bias-based policing. We will not tolerate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
So this is Trump, Ward 2. I want to read a little something to you. It's always difficult as you transition from one administration to another, and I want to read you just a brief thing from this monograph that accompanies the book Good to Great, and it talks about good to great in the social sectors, municipal government, for instance. And it begins, this little section begins with a CEO from a large company saying in his work with nonprofits, he found that they're in desperate need of greater discipline, disciplined planning, disciplined people, disciplined governance, disciplined allocation of resources. The author says, what makes you think this is a business concept? Most businesses also have a desperate need for greater discipline. Mediocre companies rarely display the relentless culture of discipline, disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and who take disciplined action that we find in truly great companies. A culture of discipline is not a principle of business, it's a principle of greatness. I personally want Starkville to be great. I do. And I think most of y'all must too, or you would have never gotten into the line of work that you currently find yourself in. You've made several decisions early in an administration that feels rushed, terminating the chief administrative officer with very little discussion, the authorization to issue bonds with no real discussion about why economic development as defined by the link was a better use of that $5 million than economic development by making the community more attractive to people who might want to live here. And you seem to be rushing into a fairly large tax increase. Despite the fact that you'll have a public hearing later tonight, I do honestly believe that decision's been made. Now that those things are out of the way, and hopefully those are out of the way, I encourage you to take a deep breath, take a step back, be disciplined in what y'all do going forward. Take some time to get to know this job. Those that have served on the board before understand in a way that the new ones of y'all on this board won't know for another couple of years, that you don't fully understand the implications of what you're doing now. And you won't for a while. So I encourage you to embrace that culture of discipline. Help make Starkville great. We all want that.
Thank you, Alderman Sistrum. Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, our public appearance has been placed on consent. We have a public hearing scheduled tonight, and that is a public hearing on the proposed ad valorem taxes and the 2014 budget for the city of Starkville. Alderman Maynard, would you like to make introductory comments?
Yes, sir. Again, I appreciate Alderman Sistrunk comments, and want to let everyone here know that we have been disciplined in this budget. We have met multiple times, spent many hours discussing, looking, analyzing. We've looked at all of the current needs that we have going forward. We've looked at long-term needs that we know we're going to have to anticipate in the future, and tried our best to anticipate revenue streams to meet those obligations that came from prior boards other than ours. With that, we feel very confident in this budget, and we feel very confident in this millage increase because it is necessary for us to be able to meet the needs of you, the citizens of our community, and the services that you desire, and also be able to take care of our employees and the hard work that they do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the members of the board prior to hearing from the public?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Mayor, let me just briefly say, and this is more or less a legal question, and of course my only interest with this is just always making sure that the city complies with the law at all times. I mentioned this to the city attorney and to the city clerk, that I want them to fully ensure that our budget complies with section 27-39-321 of the Mississippi Code of 1972 as amended. So I see that we'll be getting a report from the city clerk on that, and of course the attorney can elaborate on it more, because there's a state statute stating that the tax levy increase from one year to another should not be more than 10% unless there's some type of exception. And without that exception, I think it kind of put us at like a 10.449% increase over that. So, and my second thing I want to mention, and I left a notice on my desk, but the last notice that ran in the newspaper about the millage increase, I think that was on a Monday, September 9, 2013. That's my memory after a long day today, so on that. But the projected revenue that was listed in that legal notice mentioned something to the effect about our projected revenue like 17,500,000. And I want the city clerk to clear this up, because in his report that I have read today mentions that the projected revenue is 17,600,000. So the revenue that's listed in his report for the 2014 fiscal year is different than what is advertised. So I guess I can chin that question on down the table there, Mr. Attorney. So the question is, if the and this just came to my thought process here, but let's say if the city clerk did advertise an amount that's less than the projected revenue, I mean, where does that put us legally? Because his notice mentioned, I think, about 17.6 million for revenue, but the notice in the newspaper about 17.5. Does that create any type of legal flaw, or is there a problem? And, you know, with both of these things, if there's non-compliance, if any, where does that put us with the state auditor's office? I'm not saying that there will be, but answer the latter question first. Let me ask Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, on your report, you listed $17.6 million, and then the advertising was 17.5. Did I get that correct?
That's accurate.
So, Mr. Attorney, in light of that representation, where does that put us legally if the amount in the newspaper was different with projected revenue versus what it, in other words, it's incorrect? So where does that put us?
I think it arguably puts us in danger of statute 2739-203. That's the notice provision, and what that statute says in subsection 7 is that after the public hearing, the taxing entity, the city, may adopt a resolution levying a tax rate on the classes of property designated as specified in the advertisement. And the subsection after that, subsection 8, says that the notice requirements of the statute have to be strictly complied with. It may be an arguable point whether that revenue projection falls under the levying of a tax language in subsection 7, but I think it would give someone an argument. The other thing the board needs to consider is that the city is to make a determination on the millage increase in its regular meeting in September. So if the board were not going to act on this tonight, we would need to recess this meeting and continue the regular meeting at some other point in September to make that determination.
And Mr. Attorney, Mr. Mayor, might be further recognized?
The clerk had something he wanted to add to that.
Well, I mean, I'll wait for the vice
Go
mayor,
ahead.
please.
The mayor recognizes you, go ahead.
Well, no, I would just add that as it relates to what we've advertised in the levy, that part was accurate. As we loaded changes that came from the board, it did, this is basically through fees, permitting, things of that nature, but non-levy related. That number rated up. But as it relates to advertising the millage, that number was accurate. It's consistent all the way through, Chris. Excuse me, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Alderman Perkins.
Yes, sir. And make sure I sound, I'm not trying to make an issue, just make sure we're correct. Just keep me on the right page, Mr. Clerk. But I should have brought that, but you know, the projected revenue, I think, on the notice, let me see that, was, 17,599,869, but in your report is
17,646,959.
Right, right. So in other words, this information is incorrect, so.
That's right.
And I just want to make sure we're correct. So the city clerk the attorney is indicating that if we want to make it right, we just probably make a decision later on in the meeting to get this right and come back at a later meeting. And I just want to make sure that we're legally correct. So Chris, do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and let me place my final position out there. The express wording of the statute talks about the municipality levying a tax rate as specified in the advertisement. That's the express wording of the statute, and that should be strictly complied with. So I think we would have the stronger argument that if the levy is advertised correctly, we could probably proceed tonight. However, I can't say that wouldn't open up a challenge given the revenue projection. There's a discrepancy there. I think we would be on the stronger side of that argument.
Alderman Perkins.
I'm done. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any further questions or comments? Alderman Carver.
So the most legally safe thing you're saying is to recess and then follow back after another advertisement, which is gonna be, this is to the city attorney, you're talking about another week?
Yeah, the problem with that is that, and I'm handling all this on the fly, so bear
Right.
with me. The notice requirements, you have to run in 2 consecutive weeks, and the last one should not be less than 7 days before the meeting. And so we'd have to crunch the numbers to see whether we would have time to renotice and still get this done in September. We might not be able to, and the calendar will just tell us that.
Any further question or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments prior to hearing public comment? Alderman Maynard.
Attorney Latimer, clarify your exact position on this one more time.
Sure. Let me get back to the express wording of the statute. I've lost my place. All right. Alderman Maynard, I'm looking at the statute, which is the notice statute for taxes, 2739-203. And let me just read it to you. Subsection 7. After the hearing has been held in accordance with the above procedures, and those are the notice procedures, the governing body of the taxing entity may adopt a resolution levying a tax rate on classes of property designated by Section 112, Mississippi Constitution of 1890, as specified in its advertisement. And then if you drop down to subsection 8, it says any governing body of a tax entity shall be prohibited from expending any funds for the applicable fiscal year until it has strictly complied with the advertisement and public hearing requirements set forth in this section. And so if this issue were fleshed all the way out in litigation, the fight would be whether the express language of the statute controls, which mentions specific and strict compliance with the levy rate as compared to the discrepancy in revenue. Is that right? Projected revenue? And my position is that I think the express wording of the statute would control. that the levy rate, the fact that that notice was accurate on the levy rate, would likely control, but I can't guarantee that.
You may.
And one thing, Mr. Attorney, being, have your opinion, I mean, in the event that were challenged, I think one thing of note would be that, as we are talking about a total revenue picture that is higher than what was advertised, the millage that is levied is actually a lower percentage of that number. And the reason that the figure is in there, so that you see what percentage of your total tax picture is being levied. And so a lower number would, I mean, obviously probably not work against us.
I think that would also cut in our favor.
I'm sorry, Chris, what do you just?
I think that would also cut in our favor. That would help the argument.
Alderman Vaughn.
So your final comment that we can continue on.
I think that's where we are, given the fact that if we delay this, we bump into the notice problems of having another meeting.
Because our time is very short.
Correct.
And the consequences of that, in addition to potentially running afoul of a different set of statutes, are potentially catastrophic, because if the budget is not adopted by October 1st, we effectively don't have funding that is approved by the governing body to do basic functions of city government, like make payroll. It would seem to me, whatever minor concern we may have with this issue, there is a much greater concern to traveling the course of renoticing, which would carry us into October. Further questions or comments by the members of the board? Any further questions or comments by the members of the board? Seeing none, we will now hear from members of the public on the proposed tax levy and budget. Anyone who wishes to do so, much as we just did in citizen comments, may comment on the budget this evening by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you will be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone now wishing to be heard on the budget?
Steve Damaris, Ward 5. I want to congratulate the board on the vote to increase the millage rate. I think there's many things in our city that need to be taken care of, and increased in revenues will allow you to generate and reward the workers of our city, and fix the roads and take care of the business of the city. The proposed increase in millage rate is a proportional tax that if you have a low value home, you're going to increase very little. And if you have a higher value home, you'll increase a lot more dollars wise. But it's proportional to the value of your home, and I think that's a fair way to increase our tax revenues so that y'all can run our city at the level that we need to have it run at.
Thank you, Mr. Damaris. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the budget? Anyone else wishing to speak on the budget? Anyone else wishing to speak on the budget?
Good evening, my name is Albert Turner, Ward 7. When we're dealing with people, money, and we're dealing with a generation now that feel like that they can't take nothing, they can't be rejected, and that makes it very dangerous. Last night we had a 34-year-old to do shooting in Washington before they took him down because he was rejected. Last night, let's be careful. We're dealing with people's lives, money, and let's be careful because people get upset and snap. Our no weapon law not gonna pay. They not gonna pay their attention because when they snap, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Mr. Brewer.
Mayor and Board, thank you. I want to commend the board on the change from the 2.98 to the 1.98 or whatever it was, 2.87 to 1.98, whatever it was. I think that was a good change. I think it was an appropriate thing to do because that large an increase is, as I mentioned to you when you first took this up, is rather painful. I would like to say that I think the employees ought to get a larger portion of that increase than it seems that they're getting in the budget that I'm seeing in front of me. But that's one of those things that's going to be determined. I would also like to say that I think that the board is taking a rather large increase. 25% is pretty steep when the employees are probably getting, even since the board last got a raise, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 10% at the most. So it might be worth looking at your raise and matching it to the employees' raises over the last few years. Actually, 8 years, 9 years. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Mr. Spruill. You may.
Ms. Spruill, for your, the employees' raise was, I think you know that the raise for the mayor and board was passed, you know, during the last term.
I do know that, but y'all are taking it up again.
And it has been better than 8 years since the mayor and board gotten a raise.
I know that as well.
And you know the history on the employee getting raises. They got raises regularly.
Add them all up and see if they add up to 25%.
Well, and then again, you have to look at, you know, and it was a 6-1 vote for this.
I understand.
You know, and the mayor vetoed it, and we overrode it. And so, and the only thing that the board did tonight was just change the effective date of that increase from October 1, 2014 to October 1, 2013.
I understand.
So,
Y'all
but
can change it any way you want to. Anytime y'all are sitting together, you know you can make a change.
right, and one thing I do want to make clear, since we're on that matter, that the board did nothing tonight to give itself a pay raise. I mean, the only thing we did was change the effective date.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further comments on the budget? Any further comments on the budget?
Again, I'm gonna rise and talk about the budget. Again, I would like to say, it's time now to the board, to you, the Board of Aldermen, and also to our mayor. It's time now that we get on the board and go where we're going, not where they were. Because where they was, we didn't get all these pay raises and stuff without a fight. But you have went through the budget, you have discussed the budget, and I would just like to say keep Park and Recreation where they are. And I want to tell you also this is a new generation now. What they did back then, it reflects that they didn't do anything for what y'all are doing now. So thank you all for what you're doing now. I would still like to remind you of that little piece of junk we got up there that we're finna put so many millage and so much money into. I still would like to remind y'all of that. We may need it, but just remember, that's where all the money went to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Do we have any further comments on the budget?
Mayor, Board, Jim Gafford, Ward 5. In all due respect to my good friend Dorothy Isaac, in regards to the municipal complex, that was decided by the previous board. They set you up with a very good budget. You had a strong ending fund balance. It was run through campaigns, it was campaigned on, and the board passed it. With regards to whether or not it was voted on, we have a mayor who ran in a citywide election, won in a landslide on the municipal complex. That seems to be a done issue. Anyone making comments about it or making disingenuous comments, if you want to continue commenting about it, I would suggest that you ask to have your name removed from the building once it's complete. Second, I would also like to echo what Ms. Spruill said regarding pay raises. Not that you guys don't deserve a raise, not that you don't need a raise, and I understand you guys didn't pass the raise, but you should certainly keep the rest of the citizen in the forefront of your mind when you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gafford. Do we have any further comments on the budget? Do we have any?
Sandra Strong, Ward 2. When you're talking about the advertisements, was there a requirement for 2 advertisements? Did we meet that requirement? One had one millage rate, one had a different millage rate, and I hope that didn't count against my 3 minutes.
Let me ask, to answer your question, former Alderman Sistrunk, it does take 2 notices, correct?
For the rate that's going to be implemented.
For the public hearing, that's correct.
Did we meet that?
Mr. City Clerk?
My understanding is yes, we did.
one at 2.98 and one at 2.78 and one at 1.98, so.
No, mine is, I would say that we did 2 at 1.98.
That was my instruction to the city to do that, and you're in charge.
I
of
mean,
it.
I don't have the proofs of publication here at the table with me, but.
I was
Let me see if
curious.
it's in- But my understanding is that, yes, we advertised twice in consecutive weeks, and our public hearing is not more than 7 days following the first advertisement.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. I did see one, I didn't see both necessarily. I'll say that when I talked about discipline earlier, I think now's, this is one of the things that we were looking for as citizenry, that y'all are disciplined in as you handle our money, so that's a sacred trust. I'm gonna bring you a solution to get this tax increase down to 0.98 mils as opposed to 1.98 mils. Too late, I feel sure, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll tell you how you can do it. First of all, the increases, the pay increases for the mayor and the Board of Aldermen, and Mayor, while the board will be voting on this, you're not taking a position on it, implies your endorsement of this. Between benefits and the actual raises, it's about $40,000. That's not quite a fourth of a mil. If you reduced your board travel budget back down to what it was last year, there's another $12,000. And if you reduce the increase to the mayor's department, there's another $5,000. So there's $57,000 that will have absolutely no impact on the services rendered by the city. I don't think anybody up there is going to quit. I think you'll all still be here at your current pay rates. I don't think anybody's going to leave over that or over the lack of funding for travel. So that's about a quarter of a mil. If you were to delay the raise for other employees, this is a little painful, but if you delayed it just 3 months, that would be $60,000 to $80,000 at least in savings, somewhere around a third of a mil or so. I feel sure that the police and the fire, who are a large portion of our budget, would willingly trim $50,000 out of their budget. They almost always, between the two, have that much excess capacity in their budgets over the 4 years that I was monitoring their budgets. And I think they would willingly do that in exchange for a pay increase to their employees. That's another quarter of a mil. If you did what you said you were going to do last time, which is reduce the parks funding by $24,000, there's some additional monies. Add all that up, and you're talking about somewhere between $190,000 and $210,000. Not taking your raise now, waiting until next year, showing some discipline, waiting until next year, delaying the raise to the employees by 3 months, just 3 months. It's a little painful, but it's not fatal. And then make a couple of other changes, and you would have that under a mil. Next year is a revaluation year, so you're essentially going to get a tax increase next year anyway with the revaluation. So, again, I think y'all's votes are in place. I don't think that any of these comments will have any effect. I've sat on the other side of the table and heard people say that. So I know what it's like to hear it, but I think it's very true. And those are my comments. Y'all could have easily kept this tax increase at a level that people wouldn't have been distressed about. You could have then probably set a precedent for increase in taxes annually, which is what needs to be happening. And over the course of 4 years, you would have gotten to 2 mils.
Thank you, Alderman.
Mayor, may I recognize?
You may.
I got a question from Alderman Sistrunk. Ms. Sistrunk, have you seen that report that Mr. Adams?
I've not seen the report. I think I know probably what the report deals with the limitation on how much you can increase the budget in 1 year.
I guess my question was going to be a little premature. I was going to ask you, given your background and experience, what was your opinion from a financial CPA point of view as to whether or not the budget meets that statute, based on 10% limitation? But if you haven't seen it, I guess you can't properly answer that question.
I haven't seen it, but I did see that it was more than a 10% increase, and I did get from someone else what the assessed values were for city properties. I think y'all are cutting it very, very close. The statute addresses the 10% being based on receipts, not on assessed value, not on projected revenues, but on receipts. And I think y'all are very close. If I were in Mr. Adams' position, I wouldn't recommend that you cut it that close. But that is between y'all and your city clerk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Alderman
Once
Webb.
Mrs. Trump yields the floor.
I'm done.
Let me say something tonight. This board did not give itself any pay raises. That was done before the board prior to us. I want to read you something from the January 2nd board meeting. If you'll bear with me, it'll take a little while, but this will be okay. Consideration of a unanimous recommendation from the Audit and Budget Committee to increase the compensation of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen from $12,000 annually to $15,000 annually, and the Mayor from $60,000 annually to $71,500 annually, effective October 1st, 2013. There came consideration of a unanimous recommendation from the Audit and Budget Committee to increase the compensation of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen from $12,000 annually to $15,000 annually, and the Mayor from $60,000 to $71,000 annually, effective October 1st. Alderman Sistrunk offered these raises for the benefit of the next board, which is our board, and the intent was to bring the compensation of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen to a level that is consistent with the other municipalities in the state. She went to say, however, that in the wake of the survey presented by the Stennis Institute, it would be improper to allow the mayor and board to increase before the least partial implementation of any necessary staff increases. Alderman Sistrunk then motioned committee to increase the compensation of the mayor and the Board of Aldermen from $12,000 annually to $15,000 annually, and the mayor from $60,000 annually to $71,500 annually, effective October 1st, 2014. Duly seconded by Alderman Richard Corey. Without further discussion, the vote voted by roll call as follows. Alderman Ben Carver voted nay. Alderman Sistrunk voted yea. Eric Parker, Alderman, voted yea. Alderman Richard Corey, yea. Alderman Jeremiah Dumas, yea. Alderman Roy Perkins, yea. And Alderman Vaughn, yea. The mayor overrode this pay raise at that time. Mrs. Sistrunk, I will say this. Consideration of an override to the mayor's veto of the salary increases for the mayor and board of aldermen issued on January 22nd, 2013. There came consideration for an override of the mayor's veto of the salary increases for the mayor and board of aldermen on January 22nd, 2013. Upon the motion of Alderman Sistrunk to override the mayor's veto of the salary increases for the mayor and board of aldermen on January 22nd, duly seconded by Roy A. Perkins. I yield the floor at this time, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we'll move back into comments on the budget. Do we have any further citizen comments on the budget this evening? From anybody that hasn't spoken already? I'll offer an opportunity if you would like to speak again, although I would encourage, at some point, we do need to stop, so please, as a courtesy, don't speak more than twice. Is there anyone else?
Emmett Smotherman, Ward 5. Just like to see a little bit more transparency in this process. I know we had budget meetings. I don't believe any of the minutes of these budget meetings have been approved yet. I may be wrong. But obviously you have a public meeting. Look like you'll have some of this type of information available. Look like you have the budget available. People don't necessarily go online and get it. I didn't see it online. I think Alderman Maynard mentioned that he wanted to try to get it online. But I'm not sure if all the budget meetings, the minutes have been approved yet. And we're trying to approve a budget here.
All the budget minutes have been approved.
Okay. So,
and they're online.
It'd be nice if the online would be a lot easier to get to. You look at certain.
I believe they're online at thecityofstarkville.org, yes.
Right, but it'd be much easier to get to if you organize that page much easier, because you're looking for that particular minutes for my committee meeting. You're looking for the minutes and go on what you said, all the remainder of the needs of the city and what we're looking for. That information ought to be out there. It'll be available for the press to be able to do an article on, to make everyone aware of what's going on. Don't try to keep it a secret. And then there'll be some kind of presentation tonight on the budget before a public hearing. There'll be a presentation done so that people know what you really talking about?
And let me say this,
So-
Mr. Smitherman.
Okay.
We had a series of a total of 4 budget meetings. And of course, all of those were open to the public. Those were not closed-door sessions.
No problem with that at all.
Right. So I just want to make sure that the public understands that.
Right, but
Yeah.
a lot of public can't attend.
Right.
And approval of those minutes should be come before the board, and that should be out here for everybody to see. Because a lot of people can't come to those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smithman.
Mr. Smitherman does, can I be right?
You may.
Mr. Smitherman brings up a good point. For anybody here, if you go to the cityofstarkville.org website and look under the departmental listing, all of the agendas for our meetings are usually online by Friday of the week before. All of the approved minutes are organized there by date. So you can see the approved minutes or any agenda of any meeting that we're having. We don't have an approved budget there yet because we don't have an approved budget yet, but as soon as the budget is approved, our goal is to have that online and available for everyone. All of the past budgets are. Right, and the draft budget is online, in the packet is online now as well.
All right, is there anyone now wishing to speak for the first time on the budget? Anyone wishing to speak for the first time? All right, seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak for a subsequent time on the budget?
I'd just like to clarify, I didn't ask y'all to rescind the raise to the Board of Aldermen or to the mayor forever. I asked you to delay it to October 1st, 2014, which is consistent with what we voted on when we overrode the mayor's veto. Again, you'll have money coming in next year with a revaluation year. The dollars will be available. You can take your raise then. It's a question of discipline.
Thank you, Alderman Sistrunk. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for a second time? All right, seeing no one else wishing to speak, that will conclude our public hearing on the budget. And the next matter you have before you is a public hearing on the consideration of the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds in the maximum principal amount of $5 million to support economic development. Now, this is this resolution does not actually issue bonds. This is the resolution that brings to a conclusion the process that was started in August when the board adopted a resolution of intent to issue up to $5 million in bonds in support of economic development. As you recall, the way this program works, which is the program that the Link has been using for many years in Lowndes County and now is successfully used in Clay County, is the city and the county get bonds through the approval stage, so that in the event there is an industrial recruitment or expansion opportunity that needs public improvements to be provided by city and county, those bonds can be issued immediately at that time. The board, over the next 2 years, would have the authority to evaluate projects that the Link brings into this community for potential industrial development, and there may be occasion to issue bonds within that 2-year period. What this resolution does is this resolution opens that 2-year period where the board could utilize those bonds. Now, there is one thing that's required in this process in addition to the public hearing, because this is bringing to a close the protest period for the general obligation bonds, and that is that I asked the city clerk, have we received any written protest to the resolution of intent for the $5 million in general obligation bonds?
We have not, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone now that has brought a written petition protest to the $5 million general obligation bonds at issue? Is there anyone here now to submit written protests? All right, seeing no one, we will move into the public hearing phase, and I'll hear any questions or comments from the members of the board prior to hearing from the public. Are there any questions or comments? Alderman Carver.
I think the mayor summed this up as good as you can do, and just the fact of the matter, when you play the economic development game, a lot of times you got to put all your assets and all your cards on the table and show what you offer as a community. And we, with the university in this town and the research capabilities we have, I mean, you can't say too much ever, but you just know that some big things are on the horizon. I think in the next 3 or 4 years, you'll see some great industries coming, and when it's kind of like a snowball effect. And you've seen Columbus jump on this bandwagon about 8 or 10 years ago, and it's worked well. But when you get 1, you get 2, you get 3. It's a progressive movement that you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to offer everything that you can. We've got a great community. I think others are starting to take note of that, and so I just commend the board for this. This is a small step to maybe great progress in the near future. So when things start moving and shaking, you can look back and realize that this is just one of the small things that you have to do as a community and community leaders. But I yield the floor with that.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board? Do we have any further questions or comments on the general obligation bonds from the members of the board? Seeing none, do we have any comments now from the members of the public? Is there anyone wishing to comment on the $5 million general obligation bonds for future industrial development? Anyone wishing to make comment? Is there anyone now wishing to make comment?
Good evening, my name is Alvin Turner. Let us be careful. When you're dealing with money, they had a movie out a while back, a thin line between love and hate. All right, you don't want people to start hating, you know, what you do. You want people to appreciate what you do. And just a word to the wise. If things get screwed, the NACP probably be first call, and then Aberdeen be next call.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Are there any further comments on the general obligation bonds? Any further comments from the public on the general obligation bonds? Any further comments? All right, seeing none, that will conclude the public hearing on the general obligation bond resolution. Discussion. Do I hear any discussion on the resolution? A motion would be in order. Alderman Maynard.
Mayor, I move approval of the resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city of Starkville, Mississippi to support industrial and other economic development projects approved and recommended by the Golden Triangle Development Link in the maximum principal amount of $5 million.
Alderman Maynard, I see you have reduced that to writing. Alderman Maynard is passing his writing to the city clerk, and can you verify that's what's been read?
Yes,
All right, as the writing has been read and has been submitted as written, I will not ask it to be reread without objection. Any objection? All right, seeing none, do I hear a second for Alderman Maynard's motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is a report from Taylor Adams, Director of Finance, City Clerk, on Mississippi Code, annotated section 27-39-321, which I'm sure everybody will be seeing in their sleep tonight.
And I'll ask, as I always do, Board, would you like me to make a report here from the table, or would you like me to go to the table there and speak forward?
Without objection, we'll hear it from right here.
Okay. I'd like to thank the members of the public who have commented on this statute specifically, and also thank the Vice Mayor for his, I guess, diligence in keeping me honest.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Speaking to the statute specifically, and I will read sort of something I've prepared here and reference the statute and then why I think that we're compliant. But City of Starkville is currently operating with projected total budget revenues of $16,841,982. That's the budget that we are completing. It represents 23.29% or roughly $3.922500 million of revenue attributable to ad valorem taxation. Our fiscal year 2014 budget proposes total revenues of $17,646,950. Of that, 24.61% or $4,332,381 is proposed to be derived from an increase in the ad valorem tax levy. This increase is representative of a 1.98 mil increase to the current millage rate of 20.00. Mississippi Code annotated 2739-321. This is from this is the 2013 release that I have in my office. Basically limits increase in the municipal millage to a maximum of 10%. However, the following exception is allowed, and I'm referencing the second sentence of the first paragraph of the statute where it reads, "The additional revenue from the ad valorem tax on any newly constructed properties or any existing properties added to the tax rolls or any properties previously exempt which were not assessed in the next preceding year and cost incurred and paid in the next preceding year in connection with reappraisal may be excluded from the 10% increase limitation set forth herein." Total assessed value for the city of Starkville, January 1, 2011 to December 31st, 2011, this tax year, was $212,701,252. It was $213,858,414 for the tax year that ran January 1/12 to December 31, 2012. This difference represents a $1,157,162 or 0.5% increase in the total assessed value of taxable property inside the city of Starkville. The city of Starkville is proposing a $409,781 increase in revenue directly associated with millage, where the maximum allowable increase associated with 2011-2012 assessment would be $392,250, when assessed growth of $1,157,162 or $17,531 in proposed revenue attributable to the aforementioned code section is discounted, Starkville can be deemed compliant. And I'd like to, as we've heard specifically about that tonight, I'd like to speak further on our compliance to that issue, and I should go ahead and apologize to the general public because I understand that listening to me read numbers is probably not the most fun thing that we'll hear discussed here tonight. But when you look at the assessed breakdown for a mill within the city of Starkville, there are various types of property are assessed at different assessment formula, and so where residential property is generally assessed at let's say rate X is going to be about, call it 10%. Commercial property is assessed at 1.5 times that rate. Given the and as you break down various types of other personal property, you also see variances in that assessment ratio. When you look at the saturation of commercial property in Starkville that is rolled on to basically rolled on or been added to the tax rolls in the last 12 months, where I don't deny that it's close, we are clearly compliant with the statute, and it is my office's opinion that the 1.98 mil increase, or as well as the proposed revenue increase attributable to millage, is compliant with the statute.
Any questions or comments for the clerk? Any questions or comments for the clerk?
Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Clerk, I just want to ask you some very specific questions to make sure we make the record that we need to. I appreciate the written report and what you said after the written report. And these questions aren't adversarial, but I'm trying to ask them in a very narrowly tailored and focused way for you to give the board information for them to make their decision on. First question, put the exceptions aside for a minute, okay? So the exceptions of 27, 39, 321, putting those aside, does the proposed millage rate of 1.98 eclipse the 10% cap?
it represents more than a 10% increase in dollar revenue, but certainly not in mills associated with the 20.
Based on the receipts
That's correct.
for each of the 3 previous years?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, how much does it break the 10% cap? You heard Alderman Perkins say 10.449%. Do you know what that percentage is?
I think I do here. I have the, I have it at basically 1/2, 1%. I'm calling it 17,531 is going to be pretty close to that, but I did not pull that figure specifically for this.
So we're talking about roughly 0.5%, correct?
Yeah, we're talking about 1/2%.
Correct.
That's correct.
So the .449 is accurate?
That's accurate.
Ballpark.
That is accurate.
Okay. Now, in your report, you've cited the exception, one of the exceptions to the statute, and that's in the second sentence. I just want you to very directly, once again, say how that .449 applies to that exception based on your finding of fact as the finance director for the city of Starkville.
Certainly. I guess the easiest way to state that is that if you look at a straight 10% increase off of the $3,922,500 that we assessed for the budget that we are currently in, 10% of that is $392,250. Moving on from that, I mean, so as we are proposing $409,781, there is the $17,531 difference. Now, if you're asking where I think that we are compliant, basically the $1,157,162 difference that's been added to the mills. When you break down the assessments within that per the assessment ratio, we are under the 10% that's required.
So you're relying on the exception that states any existing properties added to the tax rolls or any properties previously exempt which were not accessed in the next preceding year and cost incurred and paid in the next preceding year.
That's correct.
And that's your express finding recommendation for the board.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments for the clerk? Any further questions or comments for the clerk? Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, the next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the adoption of a resolution setting the tax levy for the city of Starkville for fiscal year 2014 in the amount of 21.98 mils. Alderman Maynard.
Thank you, sir. I move approval of the resolution setting the millage rate for the fiscal year 2014 for the city of Starkville, Mississippi at 21.98.
Does that need to be tagged with anything about downtown?
Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself.
All right, Alderman Carver is going to recuse himself from this matter, so I will wait to hear your motion, Alderman Maynard. All right. Now, Alderman Maynard, would you like to state your motion again?
Move approval of the resolution setting the millage rate for the fiscal year 2014 for the city of Starkville, Mississippi at 21.98 mils.
And that's as presented in the board packet, Alderman Maynard?
Yes.
Alderman Maynard has moved approval, and that also has been reduced to writing. And the writing is as it was stated.
As presented.
All right, without objection, since it's been read and reduced to writing, I want to ask for a rereading. Seeing none, do I hear a second to Alderman Maynard's motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Walker?
Yes.
All right, Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir, I think we have spoken on the merits multiple times.
Further discussion?
I will just say that I'm seconding this. Nobody wants a tax increase, and we are relying on our city clerk to make sure we are compliant. With that being said, this has been an experience where you realize you don't get everything that you want. And I do agree that with this tax increase, our increased expectations for what the city can deliver. But I think the burden is also going to be on this board over the next year and the next 2 years, the next 3 years, of how do we become more efficient? So we can hopefully make more cuts to make this tax increase go farther. And I think that's going to be incumbent on each of us to look to find ways to make that happen. Because there are a lot of things in this budget that I don't necessarily agree with. But it is where we are. Is how we're going to move forward. But we know that we have to pull some things back as we move forward. There's no question about that.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Maynard's motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. And I am assuming that Alderman Carver does not want to be in for the next matter considered, so we will roll on through. The next matter you have before you is the consideration of the approval for the budget for the City of Starkville fiscal year beginning October 1, 2013. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I can be recognized.
You may.
2 parts to this budget. First, I'd like to move approval of a $1.50 per month increase in the residential sanitation rates, bringing the total monthly residential fee to $14.50 per month, effective October 1st, 2013.
And that motion has been reduced to writing. Can you place a copy with the clerk? Is it as was read?
It is.
Without objection, I will not ask for it to be reread as it has been reduced to writing. Any objection?
Mr. Mayor, the gentleman, I think we need to give the gentleman an opportunity to announce the recusal of the separate. Does he want to be recused on this as well?
I agree. Let me go get
Check with him and see. He may want to be recused. We don't need to assume it.
Thank
On the sanitation. Make sure you ask specifically.
He's elected to recuse on the budget.
All right, is there a second to Alderman Maynard's motion?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. The vote ends in a 3-3 tie, which I will break by casting my vote yea in favor of the motion. So the motion passes with a 3-3 tie of the voting members of the board and the mayor casting the tie-breaking vote. Alderman Maynard, you have the floor.
Now move approval of the fiscal year 2014 budget as presented in the board packet.
Motion has been made. Has that also been reduced to writing?
Yes.
Motion's been reduced to writing. Clerk has it without objection. I won't ask for it to be reread. Seeing no objection, do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Walker. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those, well, let's do it by show of hands. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the change in the adoption date of a resolution setting the mayor's salary and alderman's salaries for the effective date of October 2013 instead of October 2014. Discussion.
I think the reason I pull this off consent is because I do believe that it's worth having a discussion here regarding that. It's been clear from the comments that others have made tonight that this was clearly approved by the previous board, but it was set to start at a much later date. And I'm just curious to know why did it get put into this? Tonight's the first night that, or the packet was when that was made aware. So what is our rationale for doing that?
Discussion. Alderman Maynard.
I think I can address that a little bit. Alderman Walker. I think the original intent of the previous board is I read the minutes, was that that was placed in there, discussion as a motivator, I think, for this board to address the Stennis study and the pay raises for our city workers. In fact, it says in those minutes, give me a moment to find it here. Alderman Sistrunk, quoted here, said, however, in the wake of the survey presented by the Stennis Institute, it would be improper to allow the mayor and the board to be increased before at least partial implementation of necessary staff increases. With that, it is my feeling that this board has met partial, not full, but partial implementation of the Stennis report, and therefore feel that based on the previous board's decision, we should move that up to October 1st, 2013.
Discussion. Alderman Little.
I too, like my neighbor Alderman, Ward 4, found out about this Friday afternoon, the first time I'd heard about it, and while I'm not necessarily opposed to it, I think that it's poor timing with the tax increase, and I can't support it.
Further discussion. Any further discussion?
Just give me an indulge a moment.
You may.
Open floor.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
You know, maybe if someone does not want the raise, they can, if they don't support it, maybe they should not get the raise. You know, if you feel that strong about being against the raise, you can refuse not to get the raise. So I think you have that option. So, you know, I don't mind speaking up on this issue. You know, as I told Ms. Spruill when she came to the table, you know, the last time the board got a raise was in 2005, and I remember when I first started. I mean, we started almost little or nothing. I mean, you know, these things don't come every other year, and I don't mind being on record about it. And so, you know, we've come just from a very small amount to this amount. So I supported it then, and I supported it now. It passed on a 6-1 vote. The gentleman from 1 voted against it. The mayor vetoed it. And we had 5 votes to override it. So I think, you know, this is not a bad decision to do it. It just advanced the effective date up to 12 months. So I think that whichever alderman vote against it, they need to just, in my opinion, just elect not to have the raise. So as opposed to, in my opinion, just being on record against it and then get the raise in October. So I asked the board to support the change in the effective date from October 1, 2014 to October 1, 2013. So it's been more than 8 years since there's been an increase, and there's nothing untimely about this action tonight.
Alderman Perkins, was that a motion?
Yes, sir. Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to change the adoption date of a resolution setting the mayor's salary and the alderman salaries for the city of Starkville effective October 1st, 2013. Instead of October 1st, 2014, as presented. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Mayor, I want to be recognized just for one moment. I do.
Let me hear if there's a second first,
Okay.
and then I'll recognize you as soon as.
A second.
All right, motion has been seconded. Alderman Perkins, do you speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Now, Alderman Webb.
Let me be clear again. This board, again, did not give itself a raise. Did not. And I'm going to read one sentence one more time for you. Please bear with me. Alderman Sistrunk offered these raises were for the benefit of the next board, and the intent was to bring the compensation of the mayor and the Board of Aldermen to a level that is consistent with other municipalities in the state. I yield the floor at this time.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman Carver.
The reason I initially voted against it was for the fact that, like Alderman Maynard said, we still had a lot of work to be done. I think there's been a lot of work. I think the time has come. you know, and there's still a lot of work to be done. I heard a previous alderman say tonight that they were in favor of a tax increase every year. I'm not so sure about that, but I think that every year we might need to look at city employees, raises, aldermen included, mayor included, things that get us in line with other cities in the southeast, comparable cities. But I think at this time that this considerable work has been done. I know how to recuse myself, but again, previous Alderman Smithman said too that, you know, be more transparent. The way we did it this year was the most transparent in this form of government that we can have. That, I mean, it was time consuming. I'd like for you and the IT managers maybe looking, if you got some ideas on better ways to tweak finding the minutes on the city website. Next year, I'll call you before every budget meeting, make sure. I know not everybody wants to be there. We may may find a way to better publicize it as we go through the budget process. But I think the time has come for the board to have a raise, and it's been 7 or 8 years now, so the time is now.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Perkins' motion, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this motion passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the adoption of budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2013. Mr. Adams?
This is cleanup amendment is sort of a bad way to state this, but in an election year, we are limited in the number of budget amendments we can do. And so this is a big amendment, but it's a big amendment based on the fact that we haven't had one for 6 months. Also included in this amendment are all of the entries that were provided by our accountant, Watkins, Ward, and Stafford, in association with our 2012 audit. That's the reason that you're seeing, well, more than $1 million in this amendment. Most of those are adjusting entries that we get that have flowed to us from our accounting group that prepares our audits. I'll take any questions.
Discussion. Discussion on the budget amendment.
Recommend approval of the budget modification number 3.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to adopt budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2013 as presented. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Little. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Saying none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. It is unanimous. Motion passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments except for the fire department as of September 13, 2013. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Walker to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments except for the fire department as of September 13, 2013. Alderman Walker, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. That will conclude the open session portion of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, could we take about a 5-minute recess since we're here about a couple hours already?
Yes, at this time, without objection, I'll move us into a brief recess. Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, we'll stand in recess.
I'm good.
All right, the clerk will now read the motions that were passed in executive session.
First, we had a motion to accept the recommendation from Chief Roger Mann for unpaid disciplinary suspension of firefighter Stephen Boren. We had a motion to increase the mayor and board of aldermen's administrative assistant to grade 8, step 4, at a rate of $26,829, effective October 1, 2013. with the amended duties as revised by the city attorney prior to, and this raise is effective prior to any longevity increases. Third, we had a motion to extend the probationary period of Personnel Director Randy Boyd for 6 months.
That is all the business that we have before us.
Okay,
A
Mr. Mayor.
motion to recess or adjourn is in order.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this board stand adjourned to the 1st day of October 2013 at 5:30 in this boardroom.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to stand adjourned until October 1st, 2013 at 5:30 in the City Hall Courtroom, 101 East Lincoln Street. Alderman Perkins, that's your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes. We stand in recess.
Buddy, said, this is Bill's.